The further I go down this rabbit hole, man, the less things look like coincidences. Okay. You guys stick with me because we're going to go way back and I'm going to bring it forward. Everybody wants to argue politics and left versus right, red versus blue, Trump versus whoever they roll out next. But that isn't the real battlefield anymore. The real battlefield is perception, because modern power doesn't need tanks, doesn't need boots on the ground, and it doesn't even need new laws. It needs belief. It needs people to back it. And before the comment section starts hyperventilating, let me explain this. Right? Relax. This isn't a conspiracy. It's just a lot of coincidences, and they just get funded. So if you can recognize that, that means that you can recognize the pattern, because psychological warfare didn't end with Vietnam. It didn't end with the Cold War. It just changed targets. Now, decades ago, the U.S. military realized something most civilians don't understand, is that you don't have to destroy a country to defeat it. You just have to reshape how it thinks. That realization produced a concept called mind war. Not science fiction, not MK Ultra, not Hollywood brainwashing, but a serious military doctrine focused on beliefs, perception, and psychological dominance. When generals start talking about bullets and start talking about beliefs, right? Strategy. Now, how does this fit? Well, TPUSA. One man involved in that is Paul Vallely, okay? Retired major general. He was involved in developing that doctrine. Okay, not some YouTuber or blogger, but a military professional specialized in psychological operations. He co-authored a book, PSYOP to Mind War, The Psychology of Victory, and co-authored it with Michael Aquino. And this is all going to fit, I promise you. This book explored how wars could be won by shaping beliefs instead of firing shots. Now, there's where things stop being academic, because Paul Vallely later started sitting on the board, I think around 2014, of Turning Point USA. Wow. Right? It's not trivia, man. That's doctrine showing up in real life. Okay. And let's be honest with ourselves. No one just trips and falls into that much power. Okay. Now, Turning Point USA is not like they want you to lead you to believe some loose student movement. It's a machine. Training pipelines, okay? Discipline, message discipline, media access. I mean, access to all the elites, funding channels, even candidate selection. Grassroots movements argue they fracture is chaotic. This isn't. This has real deal infrastructure, right? You've seen it since, they've been on the defense of a lot of things. You see it, man. Everybody's saying the same thing at the same time with the same framing. That's not unity. That's called training. An infrastructure like that doesn't appear unless someone understands how influence actually works. Hence why Paul Vallely on the board, and then he wrote this book and actually commanded the psychological operations. Okay. So you can see here he co-authored with Michael Aquino. Now, a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I did a video talking about Michael Aquino because it's a dark story. Okay. His co-author here. This guy, Vietnam era psychological operations officer, Green Beret, Army intelligence, PSYOP research. This is him here. Notice the eyebrows, right? The eyebrows, pretty odd, but he later is infamous for founding the Temple of Set for occult associations. You also see that space device on his chest above his awards there. It's funny because when you look into NASA and Aleister Crowley being involved in the beginning, it's like a lot of occult stuff around our space research and so on. But anyway, Michael Aquino, he co-authored a book, Satanist, and you could go in and Google him. I'm not going to talk about his crimes, okay, but a lot of dark stuff. And this guy, high-ranking military, he was on the Oprah show actually back in the day and asked if they cared. He was a lieutenant colonel, I think, at that time of the show. and asked if they cared, and the Army cared about him being a Satanist. They said no, right? But people love to fixate on the robes and completely miss the resume. You don't have to, dig far, man. Just Google the guy's name. I promise. But what matters is how these two are obviously close enough to write a book together on mind war. And this Paul Vallely being connected to this guy who's a Satanist, created a whole temple, right? But then going into TPUSA, what they actually do, okay? Because this is where it gets people squirmy, man. Psychological warfare today doesn't look like propaganda posters or whatever you imagine. It looks more like branding, emotional framing, identity reinforcement, message repetition, and controlled exposure, right? You see the message. We get it. We get it. It's psychological. It's you're not being persuaded, but you're being handled. And nobody's forcing you to believe anything. They just narrowed your options. And how does this fit in? Well, TPUSA came out and is backing JD Vance and Erica Kurt also backing JD Vance as the candidate. That's strong because a lot of people are following this. They're fans of Charlie. Charlie got brutally murdered. And so obviously the widow is backing JD Vance. JD Vance is the vice president. So we fast forward to JD Vance currently, okay? A lot different than it was a few years ago, because a few years ago, he was very anti-Trump, okay? And I'm going to have to stop this every few seconds because the music in the background.
And frankly, I think a really bad person.
He's talking about Trump. He said he's a really bad candidate, a really bad person.
There is definitely an element of Donald Trump's support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia.
His support in a basis of racism and xenophobia.
I never liked him. I don't know.
I never like him.
Who I'm going to vote for. I'm definitely not going to vote for Trump because
I'm not going to vote for Trump. Okay, so you have a man who was very outspoken critic of Trump, and then suddenly he started getting elite funding. The kingmaker. Okay, Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel helped make JD Vance. Okay, he sought out JD Vance early on, bankrolled him, got him elected, and then fast forward, he's in a position. And if you don't know, Peter Thiel is an investor, so he's only going to invest on things he gets return on. So this is not happening by accident. JD Vance did not get chosen for VP as an accident. Okay, this wasn't a rise. This was a release date backed by people who understand leverage, timing, and perception. Right? Again, I'll say it again. Nobody trips and falls into this much power. Right? And if we look at Peter Thiel donated $1.25 million in support of Donald Trump. He also donated much more. He's also the one who went to Donald Trump and advised him to select JD Vance as his running mate. So when you look at these things, JD Vance got put in this position. Okay. He's now bankrolling Republicans. Okay. He's making moves. He's part of what they're calling the new MAGA, where it's all these tech overlords. But Peter Thiel was also good friends and invested with Jeffrey Epstein, invested with Peter Thiel, and his estate is reaping millions. So he was a known associate of Jeffrey Epstein as well. So you see the connections to all this stuff. It's like a freaking spider web. Peter Thiel does tons of seminars on Antichrist and so on. Peter Thiel bankrolled JD Vance. Peter Thiel Palantir. And then now people are squirming because Trump taps Palantir to compile data on Americans, on citizens. Palantir is taking over the world with AI governance. But you see we went from psychological algorithms, Peter Thiel with algorithms, state surveillance, obviously the technocracy JD Vance coming in, pushing legislation, making deals with Palantir. They're being made right now, currently, with Donald Trump. And TPUSA is backing them. So this isn't about liking or hating TPUSA, and it's not even about liking or hating Vance. It's about whether modern politics is still organic. A lot of people think it's still organic. It's not. It's engineered. You see the timeline here. It's engineered. And psychological operations are a big part of this. Because once politics becomes psychological warfare, the public stops being citizens, but the targets. And then targets arguing with each other which system they want control of them, or while the system is quietly running in the background. Now, I'm not claiming some cartoon villain is pulling levers in a dark room, but I'm saying something much simpler, man. Doctrine exists, systems exist, influence exists. And if you think this is all accidental, congratulations. The system is working, right? It's working. But how does a man who wrote a mind warfare book wind up on the advisory panel for TPUSA in the beginning years? So I think it was started in 2012. He jumps in 2014. And you look at early Charlie, and then you see what happened beyond that, especially in the aftermath with a lot of the defense they've been trying to, kind of stop a lot of these accusations. You see the trained narrative. You see the statements. You see it doesn't look organic. It doesn't. It just doesn't. You can't have these many coincidences. Anyway, guys, I wanted to share this because, man, that was a really, again, everything that I see surrounding this group, like I really start believing the conspiracies because there's just too much. It's a lot more than you can just really say is accidental. Anyway, guys, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. And I would like for you to like, share, and subscribe. Remember to stay frosty, stay strapped, and always stay dangerous. Black Scout.
2, 3. 4, 2.